Tonight at 6, we're learning more about the victims in a triple shooting on Jacksonville's north side. They've been identified as Brianna Johnson and her two young daughters, Rhythm and Harmony Reed. That's according to a GoFundMe posted by Johnson's sister.
He wasn't even supposed to have a gun. Let me say that again. Trudale Reed was a convicted felon, banned by law from ever owning a firearm. Didn't matter. Somewhere, somehow, he got his hands on one anyway. And on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in Jacksonville, Florida, he turned that gun on the mother of his children, and on his own two little girls. One of them was 4 years old. Her name was Dream Reed, and by the end of that afternoon, her name would be all over the news for the worst reason a child's name can be in the news. This is the story of what happened on Tracy Lynn Drive. This is the story of Alicia Ward, a mother who almost didn't survive her own front yard. And this is the story of how a system that's supposed to keep guns away from dangerous men didn't. In every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear. Now here's what we know, and just as importantly, here's what we don't. Trudale Reed was 29 years old. He had a criminal record serious enough that the law said he could never legally own a gun again. That's not a small thing. That's not a parking ticket. Felons don't get their gun rights back easy in Florida or anywhere else. So somebody with his history, walking around with a firearm, that's already a red flag before a single shot gets fired. Alicia Ward was the mother of his children, two daughters, Dream, who was 4, and her little sister, just 2 years old at the time. The reports don't give us the years of history between Trudale and Alicia. They don't tell us how the relationship started, or when things first went bad. What we do know is this. On that Tuesday, something between Trudale and Alicia turned into an argument. Not behind closed doors. Outside. In front of the home on Tracy Lynn Drive. A domestic dispute, that's the phrase investigators used. 2 words that sound almost routine. Almost small. But there's nothing routine about what came next. So what? So a disagreement between 2 adults turned into a crime scene. That's what. Neighbors on that street said it themselves. Nothing like this had ever happened there. Not on that block. Not to anybody they knew. Definitely not to a child. That's the thing about domestic violence. From the outside, a house can look calm. A relationship can look normal. Neighbors wave. Kids play in the yard. Nobody suspects a thing is wrong. And then one day, it's not calm anymore. It's not quiet. It's gunfire. Investigators say the argument between Trudale and Alicia started the chain of events that afternoon. We don't know every word that was said. We don't know exactly how long the 2 of them stood out there before things turned. What we do know is that whatever was said, whatever was building between them, it ended with Trudale Reed pulling a trigger. Not once. Multiple times. With Alicia there. With both of his daughters there. A domestic dispute is supposed to end with somebody storming off. Somebody slamming a car door. Somebody staying at a friend's house for the night to cool off. It is not supposed to end with a 4-year-old girl getting shot in her own front yard. But that's exactly what happened next, Tuesday afternoon. Tracy Lynn Drive. That's where it happened. The argument between Trudale and Alicia didn't stay just an argument. At some point outside that home, Trudale Reed opened fire. Not a warning shot. Not into the air. He shot at the mother of his children, and he shot at his own daughters, who were right there with her. When it was done, 4-year-old Dream Reed had been shot. She did not survive. Her mother, Alicia Ward, was shot too, critically injured, and Dream's little sister, only 2 years old, was also shot and left in critical condition. Let that sit with you for a second. A 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, shot by their own father. I said what I said. There is no version of a domestic dispute that is supposed to end this way. Whatever led up to that moment, whatever words were exchanged, none of it explains a man turning a gun on his toddlers. Neighbors heard it. Neighbors saw the aftermath. And for a street that says nothing like this has ever happened before, that Tuesday afternoon became the day everything changed. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office responded to the scene on Tracy Lynn Drive, and what they found was a triple shooting inside one family, a dead child, a critically wounded mother, a critically wounded toddler. Investigators moved fast. Trudale Reed was identified as the shooter, and he was taken into custody shortly after. He was charged with first-degree murder for the death of Dream Reed and 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder for what he did to Alicia and to their 2-year-old daughter. Now here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. Trudale Reed was a convicted felon. Under the law, he was not allowed to have a firearm, period. That should have meant no gun in his hands, ever. But somehow, some way, he had one on that Tuesday afternoon, and investigators have not said publicly how he got it. Moving on, but that question matters, because a law on paper doesn't stop a bullet. A background check doesn't mean a thing if a prohibited person can still find a way to get a weapon. Somebody, somewhere, either sold him that gun, gave him that gun, or looked the other way, and 2 children paid the price for that gap. While all of this was unfolding, Alicia Ward and her surviving daughter were rushed to the hospital, fighting to survive the same violence that took Dream's life. But hey, this is where the story could have just faded into another local headline. Except it didn't. Because what happened next showed a whole community was not about to let Alicia go through this alone.
Domestic violence is one of the most hardest things to talk about, especially when it involves someone you know personally. But advocates say silence is not the answer. And it also shows that domestic violence is linked to half of female homicide cases in the U.S. That's according to a study from the American College of Surgeons. JSO says Tuesday's afternoon shooting started with an argument between the children's mother and the suspect, 29-year-old Trudale Reed. Investigators say Reed shot and killed their 4-year-old daughter, Harmony Reed, and critically injured the children's mother, Brianna, and her 2-year-old daughter, Rhythm Reed, leaving this quiet community where the tragedy happened in disbelief.
Nothing like this has ever happened in this neighborhood, on this street, ever. And for something like this to happen, especially to a child.
An online fundraiser has been set up by a family member to help support Brianna and her 2-year-old daughter as they try to recover. A statement in the GoFundMe reads, "This GoFundMe was created simply as a way for those who have expressed a desire to support Brianna Johnson and her daughter Remy Reed during their journey to recovery. As Brianna focuses on healing and caring for herself and Rhythm while navigating this unimaginable loss, any support, prayers, or shares are deeply appreciated." It's a pattern advocates say they see too often, and one of the hardest things to break without support. This morning, we spoke with Stephanie Brown, the Director of Community Education at Hubbard House, about warning signs to watch for and how to help someone who may not be ready to ask for help themselves.
And so we always encourage a person to try to talk one-on-one, try to talk in person. That's the safest way to let that person know you care about them. They deserve to be safe, and don't spend time with questions. That moment is about, I think you might need help.
Hubbard House outlines several warning signs of abuse, including unexplained physical injuries, signs of mental manipulation, and a victim who seems constantly fearful about their safety or their children's safety.
It's important that survivor knows that we're not judging them. Right. We're not doubting them. There are so many reasons they may not be ready to ask for help in this moment. But if we let them know that we're still here when they are ready, then you can be that life-saving bridge.
In Jacksonville, I'm Ashley French, Channel 4, D local station.
Reed returns to court July 23rd. As a convicted felon, he was legally barred from having a gun. Investigators have not said publicly how he got the weapon used in Tuesday's shooting. Meanwhile, the mother and toddler are still in the hospital tonight.
Trudale Reed appeared in court, facing first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. The judge looked at his history, looked at what he'd done, and denied him bond. No bail, no release. He stays behind bars while this case moves forward, with his next court date set for July 23rd. Period. A man accused of shooting his own daughters, and their mother does not need to be walking free while the system figures out what comes next. While Trudale sat in a jail cell, Alicia Ward and her surviving daughter were still fighting in a hospital bed. A family member set up a GoFundMe to help them through it, and Alicia herself came out publicly to thank her neighbors, her friends, the first responders, and every stranger who sent a prayer or a dollar her way. That's the kind of community response that doesn't happen by accident. That's people showing up for a mother who almost didn't make it home. But hey, let's talk about the bigger picture for a second, because this case is not an isolated one. Domestic violence is linked to half of all female homicide cases in this country. Half. That is not a small number, and Dream Reed's death is now part of that statistic, whether we like it or not. Advocates say the warning signs are often right there in plain sight, if people know what to look for. Unexplained injuries. A partner who seems to control everything the other person does. Someone who always seems afraid, not just for themselves, but for their kids. And here's the thing. If you see those signs in somebody you know, the advice from advocates isn't to bombard them with questions. It's to talk to them one-on-one, in person, and let them know you see them, and you're not judging them. Because here's what's real. A survivor might not be ready to leave the day you notice something is wrong. They might not be ready the week after, or the month after. But if you stay present, if you let them know the door is open whenever they are ready, you become what one advocate called a life-saving bridge. Not the rescue, just the bridge. And sometimes that's the difference between another GoFundMe and another funeral. Dream Reed was 4 years old. She should be starting school right now, not a headline. Her little sister and her mother are still healing from wounds that will never fully close. And the only thing any of us can do with a story like this is make sure we don't look away from the signs next time. Because there's always a next time, until somebody steps in.